Hey everyone, I'm Jason, and this is your commentary on Numbers chapter 30. This chapter is pretty straightforward. It's all about special promises. These were sacred promises that once you made them, you weren't allowed to break them. It's something like if you were to promise to give money to the synagogue, you would be held responsible for that. Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of Israel. He said, "Here is what the Lord commands. Suppose a man makes a special promise to the Lord, or suppose he gives his word to do something. Then he must keep his promise. He must do everything he said he would do. Suppose a young woman is still living in her father's house. She makes a special promise to the Lord, or she gives her word to do something. Suppose her father hears about her promise, and he doesn't say anything to her about it. Then she must keep her promise. She must do what she agreed to do. But suppose her father doesn't allow her to keep her promises when he hears about them. Then she doesn't have to do what she promised or agreed to do. The Lord will set her free. He'll do it because her father hasn't allowed her to keep her promises." So we see the first promise is if a man makes a promise, he has to keep it. It's legally binding in this regard. But if a girl in her father's house makes a promise, if the father allows it, doesn't say anything about it, she has to keep her promise. But if he tells her that she's not allowed to fulfill it, then she's free from it. The reason for this is it's descriptive of the time where the women, they didn't have possessions, they didn't have certain things of their own, especially when they're living underneath their father's house. He would be responsible for her fulfilling the promise. Because he would be the one responsible, he has the right to immediately address it and say, she's not going to carry this out. We're going to see this as a recurring theme throughout. Suppose she gets married after she makes a special promise, or she gets married after agreeing to do something without thinking it through. Suppose her husband hears about what she did, and he doesn't say anything to her about it. Then she must keep her promise. She must do what she agreed to do. But suppose her husband doesn't allow her to keep her promises when he hears about them. Then she doesn't have to do what she promised. She doesn't have to do what she agreed to do without thinking it through. The Lord will set her free. Suppose a widow makes a special promise, or suppose she gives her word to do something. Then she must keep her promise. She must do what she agreed to do. The same rules apply to a woman who has been divorced. So we see the young girl in her father's house, or we see the wife, where the husband would be responsible for any promise she makes. They have to keep it unless the father or the husband tells them not to. But in the case of the widow or the divorcee, they are 100% responsible for any promise they make. So they have to keep it. Suppose a woman living with her husband makes a special promise, or she gives her word to do something. Suppose her husband hears about what she did. He doesn't say anything to her about it, and he doesn't try to stop her from keeping her promises. Then she must keep all of them. She must do what she agreed to do. But suppose her husband doesn't allow her to keep her promises when he hears about them. Then she doesn't have to do what she promised. She doesn't have to do what she agreed to do. Her husband has kept her from doing what she said she would do. The Lord will set her free. Her husband can let her keep any special promise she makes, or he can refuse to let her keep it. Suppose she gives her word not to eat anything. Then her husband can let her keep her promise, or he can refuse to let her keep it. But suppose day after day her husband doesn't say anything to her about what she did. Then he lets her keep all her promises. He lets her do everything she agreed to do. That's because he didn't say anything to her when he heard about what she had done. But suppose some time after he hears about her promises, he doesn't let her keep them. Then she will be guilty, but he will bear the consequences for her guilt. These are the rules the Lord gave Moses about a man and his wife, and these are the rules the Lord gave about a father and his young daughter still living at home. This passage is descriptive of their time, because the husband or the father would be responsible for any promises made by the wife or the child. So it's not necessarily to be held to today. where women with full rights are able to take responsibility for any of the promises that they make. That is it for our commentary on Numbers chapter 30. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next time.